The rain never truly stopped on Argon Prime. It felt like a second skin, thin, oily, constant. Not enough to cleanse the streets, just enough to smear the grime. Lights flickered overhead in alien glyphs, red and green pulses advertising memory. Wipes, black market limb enhancers, and pleasure dens on levels no one talked about. Everything below Sector 5 was known by one name, the gutters. It was a place where even the rain gave up trying. Malik Rowan adjusted the collar of his frayed coat as he moved through the crowd. His boots squelched through puddles of chemical runoff. He didn't walk like a man with a destination. He walked like someone trying to forget where he'd been. A freelance pilot with a half-dead ship and a wallet holding just enough credits to get lost again. He wasn't here for trade or pleasure or trouble. But sometimes trouble didn't wait for permission. He saw her the moment he turned into the open square. She didn't move like the others. Didn't beg. Didn't chase passers-by. She just stood motionless under the metal awning beside a broken vendor stall. A single flickering bulb illuminated her frame. She was wrapped in a soaked, brown cloak that clung to her thin body like a wet shroud. But it was what she held that stopped Malik cold. A sign, cardboard, waterlogged, one line in shaky universal script. One night of service, enough for one leg. Malik's gut twisted. He saw things that didn't leave when you closed. Your eyes. Battlefield screams, blood and zero gravity, cargo crates filled with things that should never be boxed. But this ... this was quiet. Brutal in its simplicity. He tried to keep walking. He managed 4 steps before stopping. Not because of pity. Not because of guilt. Something deeper. Something that had been buried a long time. He turned. She watched. Him. Not like someone begging, but like someone daring him to keep moving. Her eyes weren't empty. They were sharp. Violet and burning beneath wet strands of tangled hair. Valari. Definitely. Her skin was a soft lilac shade too pale from cold. The lower edge of her cloak was lifted slightly by the breeze, revealing the cruel truth beneath it. Her right leg ended at the knee. There was no covering. Just a jagged socket rusted, open, exposed to the filth of the city. The cybernetic. Port was twisted, malformed. Whoever removed her leg didn't care if she lived after. Malik walked closer. The girl's fingers tightened around the wooden handle of the sign like she expected it to be ripped away. Her jaw was clenched. She didn't speak. I'm not here to insult you, Malik said quietly. The words felt strange coming from his mouth, like they belonged to someone better. She narrowed her eyes. Then why? What's your name? Pause. Sile. How old are you, Sile? 17 cycles. She looked away as she spoke. He looked down again at the torn skin, the bruises under her collarbone, the way she swayed slightly, like standing was already too much. Raiders? He asked. She nodded once. Malik stared at the rain bouncing off the pavement. He thought of his ship. Broken hyperdrive, dwindling fuel, not much of a future. But somehow, this girl had even less. And yet she stood. Passers-by muttered behind him. A tall insectoid scoffed. A pair of Andari twins crossed the street to avoid them both. This part of the city wasn't for empathy. It was for forgetting. Malik took a breath. Come with me, he said. The shop didn't belong in the lower districts. Malik had to guide Sile through 2 layers of biometric checkpoints, a hovering checkpoint drone, and an elevator that reeked of sterilized steel and money. The farther they rose, the more the colors changed from rust and grime to chrome and soft blue light. This wasn't a place for the broken. This was where the wealthy replaced fingers for diamonds and legs for speed mods. And everyone knew it. Sile limped beside him, teeth clenched, jaw locked. Her new cloak stolen from Malik's ship clung awkwardly to her shoulders. She looked like a scrap of cloth in a gallery of glass. They stepped into a clinic shaped like a tear, clean cold, too quiet. The air buzzed faintly with ionized filters. A single human woman emerged from a back room, wiping her hands on a surgical towel. "Rowan?" she said, blinking. "You're still alive?" "Barely," Malik said. "I need a favor, Karina." Karina Vell studied him, then glanced past to Sile. She didn't blink. Her face didn't twist. But the silence she held was heavier than shame. She approached silently and knelt down, lifting the cloak from Sile's leg. Sile flinched. "Don't touch me," she hissed out. Karina paused. Then, with gentle fingers, lifted it again but slower. "Careful, precise. Whoever did this wasn't trying to save her," she said, voice low. "They just wanted what they could take. The nerve cap is shattered, alignment's a joke, and infection's already started." Sile looked away. Malik didn't. Karina stood. "If we don't act now, she loses the rest of the leg. Maybe worse. Can you fix it?" Karina's lips pressed into a line. "A Tier 1 prosthetic full flex, neural sync, nano-healing tech runs 3,500 credits, not counting port reconstruction. But I've got an old Type 9 unit, refurbished, 2,000 flat, basic sync. No boosters." Malik didn't speak. He pulled up his wrist console and stared at the number blinking back at him. 6,042 credits. He had enough for hyperdrive repairs, jump fuel, and 6 weeks of survival. That was it. Sile watched him. No begging, no hope. Just a tired kind of waiting, like she already knew he'd walk away. Just like the others. Malik didn't move for 10 seconds. Then he looked up. "Do it." Karina nodded and turned, already barking orders to unseen medtechs behind the wall. Sile blinked. "Why?" she asked softly. "You don't know me. I didn't earn this." Malik gave her the smallest shrug. "You didn't have to." The moment shattered like glass. Sile staggered, catching herself on the frame of a chair, lips trembling. But she didn't cry. She just sat, spine straight, head held high, like if she broke now, the world would win again. The surgery began 30 minutes later. Malik sat in the lobby with a cup of synthetic coffee so stale it tasted like ash. He read headlines on the wall feed. War in the 6th quadrant. Diplomatic breach near the Thoracian belt. 300 workers disappeared from a mining rig near Orion 8. Same cycle. Different story. But he kept glancing at the double doors. Hours passed. At one point, he stood and paced. When a boy cried across the waiting room, Malik handed him a ration bar without speaking. The mother didn't thank him. Finally, Karina returned. Her gloves were stained pale blue. Her eyes were tired, but sharp. "She's stable," she said. "I rebuilt the interface. Reconnected the nerve filaments. The Type 9 took well." She walk within a week. Malik exhaled. "Can I see her?" Karina hesitated. "She's asleep." Malik just nodded. He entered the recovery room quietly. The lighting was soft, humming like rain on a roof. Sile lay under a silver thermal sheet. Her violet hair had been combed back, her hands folded neatly over her stomach. Beside the bed, her old cloak hung, still wet with city sludge. Beneath it, her new leg gleamed faintly in the dim light. Sleek, silver, simple. Malik didn't stay long. He left a sealed food packet on the tray, along with the clean boots from his cargo hold. He didn't say goodbye. Outside, the rain had followed them, even here, dancing on the windows like fingers tapping a memory. He walked back to the docks. Alone, with just 4 credits left and a busted ship that couldn't even lift off. His conscience felt lighter. His future heavier. He never heard the soft voice that whispered behind him after he left. "Thank you." Malik had been scavenging the boneyard for 3 days when he heard the footsteps. The docking sector of Argonne Prime's shipyard wasn't much more than a graveyard of forgotten vessels, rusted haulers, gutted freighters, drones long stripped for parts. This place smelled like melted wire and failure. Malik's boots echoed through the rows of decaying steel as he knelt beside his ship, the Dandelion ruin, wrist-deep in coolant sludge. His hyperdrive core was still leaking, and he didn't have the credits for real replacements. He'd been trying to weld a bypass loop using scrap from a decompression pump built 50 years ago. It wasn't going well. When the steps came light, uneven, but determined, he didn't look up at first. Lots of people wandered the yards, some looking for old friends, some hoping to disappear, some trying to sell things they'd regret. Then he heard the voice. "You left without saying anything." Malik's hand froze. He turned slowly. There she was. Sile stood 10 feet from him, her posture proud but still uncertain, like a person stepping into light after too long in shadow. Her cloak was different, clean, fitted. Her violet hair had been tied back with a thin strip of metal, and her face looked less hollow now, though the defiance in her eyes remained. But what Malik noticed most was her walk. She was standing on her new leg, walking on it, no crutch, no limp. Each step held the weight of someone who had spent years crawling and finally remembered how to rise. "You shouldn't be here," Malik said, wiping grime from his hands. "Too bad," she replied. She held a satchel in one hand. It was patched and ragged, the kind spacers used when they had only one bag to carry their life. She dropped it at his feet. "I came to work. You said you had a ship." Malik gave a half smile, gesturing toward the vessel behind him. "Not much of one," he said, "but it flies most days." Sile glanced at the Dandelion ruin, its panels scorched, plating cracked, one stabilizer half detached. "Looks like it needs a miracle," she muttered. "That makes 2 of us." Malik didn't say yes. He didn't need to. By sunset, she had already cleaned half the cockpit and realigned the auxiliary grid on her own. Malik watched from the corner of the engine room, pretending to check fuel lines, but in truth he was watching her fingers. Delicate, but fast. Focused. She didn't ask questions, didn't slow down. She worked like someone who decided she was never going back to the rain again. By the end of the second day, she had configured the nav systems, bypassed the damaged gyro, and organized the medbay supplies without being told. On the third day, she found the old pilot chair in storage. Repaired it, mounted it next to Malik's. "Why?" he asked, staring at the second seat. "Because I'm not cargo," she said. "I'm crew." The words settled between them like gravity. But peace didn't last long on Argon Prime. It was late on the 4th cycle when the ship's proximity alert chirped, not loud, not urgent, but insistent. Malik opened the scanner. 3 heat signatures outside the docking zone perimeter. "Sile," he called, "seal the ramp." She was already moving. Malik reached under the control panel and retrieved the compact pulse pistol he kept for times like this. He checked the charge. 82%. Enough if it didn't go sideways. The outer cam showed 3 figures approaching. 2 Tharnin, lizard-skinned with merc jackets. The third hooded, thin, with a glimmer of gold on their belt, carried a datapad. "They're not local," Sile said. "Bounty hunters?" Malik muttered. "For me?" She asked. "Maybe for me," he answered, lips tight. They watched the figure stop 20 paces from the ship. The hooded one held up the datapad, tapped something, then walked away. The 2 Tharnin lingered a few seconds longer, snarling faintly at the cams before turning to follow. Minutes later, the alert cleared. Malik downloaded the pad's transmission. A bounty notice. Unregistered Valeri female, no limb. Missing from a shipment of salvaged biogoods. Reward. 12,000 credits alive. 5,000 if dead. Sile's breath hitched when she saw it. "They think I'm still property," she whispered. Malik closed the pad slowly. He looked at her. Her chest was rising, shoulders tight. "I'm not sending you away," he said. I'm not leaving, she replied. He nodded once. Then he stood. Suit up, he said. We launch at dawn. And just like that, they became fugitives. The stars were different in every system, but the silence between them never changed. Malik leaned back in the pilot chair as the dandelion ruin coasted in drift mode between jump coordinates. The ship groaned occasionally from old wounds. It could no longer hide, but it flew. Barely. They'd made it off Argon Prime under the cover of a weather burst, heat signatures scrambled by the storm. But Malik knew what would follow. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But they were being tracked. He glanced over. Sile sat beside him, legs crossed, fingers tapping the nav screen with practiced ease. The soft glow of the console reflected off her silver prosthetic. It was no longer just a replacement limb, it had become an extension of her will. She'd carved etchings into the alloy Valeri glyphs for speed, balance, memory. She called it her other path, not a leg. A choice. How far to Denver's field? She asked without looking up. 3 hours at full thrust, Malik said. 7 if we want to stay invisible. Go invisible, she said. I'm tired of being seen by the wrong eyes. He smirked. The past weeks had changed everything. Sile had learned to strip a plasma regulator, reroute stabilizer flow, and hand-fix cracked coolant pipes in 0G. She didn't just repair, she improved. Every day the dandelion ruin was less a ship and more a sanctuary, but survival had a price. Their first delivery run brought them into orbit over Pellis 3, an outpost world known for scrap markets and mercenary trades. They were supposed to drop off 2 crates of vintage wiring. Easy credits. Clean trade. Until a security drone scanned their passenger manifest. Malik had forgotten to wipe the biometric logs. Crew member Sile is flagged. The drone had chirped. Valari female. Match found. Corsair Syndicate protocol activated. What followed was pure instinct. Malik shot out the drone's sensor with a modded flash round. Sile jammed the nav override and punched their exit coordinates. They barely escaped the orbital blockade. No credits. No landing. No rest. And now they drifted through black space. Fugitives with nothing but grit and a ship held together by stolen bolts and hope. We'll need parts, Sile said, breaking the silence. We'll need food, Malik replied. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The look in her eyes said something else entirely. We'll find a way. It was during their next stop, an abandoned mining rig on the edge of the Antari belt, that everything changed. They docked under stealth. Interior systems were offline, but residual energy suggested something still pulsed inside. Malik wanted supplies. Sile wanted answers. The Corsairs use stations like this, she said, to hold cargo or people. Malik paused. You think we'll find survivors? I think we'll find ghosts, she replied. They moved through the dark corridors with hand lamps and sidearms. Every sound echoed like a memory. Broken harnesses, scratched walls, locks forced open from inside. Signs of struggle, but no bodies. They found a storage room. And inside it, a data cache. Ile plugged it into her wrist console. Lines of text and Corsair dialect scrolled fast dates, transfers, organ logs, pricing. They called us units, she whispered. Like crates. The last entry stopped her heart. Unit to 764, Valari, age 17. Defective due to injury. Transferred to street-level asset disposal. Argon Prime. Sector 7. She was on the list. Officially discarded. Like trash. Her hands trembled. Malik touched her shoulder. Not anymore. She swallowed hard. Then she wiped the entire drive, torching it with a microburner. No one gets to keep our names in cages, she said. They exited the station with a handful of supplies and a growing fire inside, but as they Return to the ship. A message was waiting in the cum buffer. Encrypted. Audio only. To the pilot of the Dandelion Ruin, we know what you took. Return the girl, or we take the ship in your spine. Malik looked at Sile. She didn't flinch. What's the plan? She asked. He smiled coldly. We stopped running. The colony of Krelos 4 wasn't on any official charts anymore. Had once been a bustling mining hub, rich with thraxium veins and laborers from 8 systems. But when the market collapsed and the unions rebelled, the corporations pulled out overnight. What was left behind, the workers, the families, the children, was simply erased. Now the colony lived on as a ghost station, inhabited by those too stubborn or too poor to leave, and ruled in the shadows by the Corsair raiders who'd filled the vacuum. Malik didn't want to land there. But the Dandelion Ruin was leaking coolant fast, and their last supply run had ended with a shattered crate and a malfunctioning food processor. They had one option: risk Krello or drift into dead space with nothing but crumbs and fumes. Short hop, Malik muttered, steering the ship through the collapsing orbital field. In and out. Sile sat beside him, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the approaching colony. She hadn't said a word since they locked in the coordinates. Not since the data cache. Not since she saw her name filed under defective. The docking bay was half lit, flickering lights. 2 landing guides leaned against the wall, smoking. No scanners. No questions. That was how business worked out here. No one asked where you came from, only if you could pay. Malik and Sile disembarked. With forged trader credentials and a story about selling refurbished oxygen filters. They walked together, shoulders brushing, down rusted corridors and into the central market, a patchwork of old freight containers turned into stalls. The air smelled of metal, sweat, and something burning. As they passed a cage filled with malfunctioning droids, Sile stopped. Cold. Voices. Soft, but urgent. In VLAR. She turned. There, tucked in the shadows behind a tech vendor's stall, was a holding cage. Not metal. Energy. Designed to keep things alive. Inside were 6 figures, 4 young Velari boys, maybe 10 cycles old. 1 elder woman, and a girl. All beaten. Thin. Their wrists bore shock bands. Their eyes were wide with the kind of fear you didn't learn, you were born into it when you were caught. Sile's breath vanished. They're from my village, she whispered. Malik followed her gaze. One of the boys, his face bruised, his cheek cut, looked directly at Sile and smiled. Then she gasped, "That's my brother." Malik grabbed her arm before she could bolt. "We can't just— They took my leg," she said through clenched teeth. "They took my life, and now they've taken my family." "We don't have weapons," he hissed. "We don't even know how many guards are stationed." 2. Sile cut in. "There's always 2. Corsairs never waste more than that unless there's high-value targets. These aren't slaves, they're waiting to be processed." Malik stared at her. "How do you know that?" "Because I remember how they watched me. Like I was already gone," he exhaled. "Fine. We do this your way, but we do it clean." They spent the next 6 hours casing the compound from above, using old service ducts and crawl spaces. The raider post had 2 outer guards, as Sile predicted. One patrolled the upper deck with a plasma rifle. The other dozed by the gate controls. No auto turrets, no drones. Just laziness and cruelty. Night fell, and the rains came, not like Argon Prime's gentle oil-slick drizzle. This was thick, hot rain, sulfuric, steaming against metal rooftops. It was the kind of storm no one wanted to work in. Perfect. Cover.sile activated the booster in her prosthetic leg, a custom mod she had added, herself using a magnetic stabilizer coil. She launched upward, grabbing the gutter rail silently and pulling herself onto the roof. She crawled across the ledge, breathing shallowly, remembering how to be invisible. Malik, down below, slipped through the shadows toward the power relay. At the signal, one sharp click through the cum bead. He pulled the trigger. The power grid sparked once, then died. Sile dropped from above like a ghost. The first guard never saw her coming. The second stirred from sleep just in time to taste the butt of her stun rod. The cage shimmered, flickered, then powered down. Sile ran to the boy van. He leapt into her arms, sobbing. "You came back," he cried. "Always," she said. The others followed quickly. Malik waved them toward the hidden service corridor. "Go now. Fast. Silent." They ran. Alarms would follow, but not yet. When they reached the ship, Malik hit the ramp just as sirens began to wail behind them. They launched fast, no warm-up, no clearance. Just fire, smoke, and the pounding of a dozen boots chasing a freighter that had already vanished into the clouds. Inside, the children huddled in the storage bay, silent, shaking. Sile knelt beside them. She looked at Malik, her voice low. "You didn't just save me," she said. "You saved my whole family." Malik met her eyes. "Told you, no one gets left behind." And for the first time since Argon Prime, Sile smiled with something real. The sky above the refuge station burned crimson, reflecting off the hull of the Dandelion ruin as it coasted into orbit. This was no ordinary safe haven. Refuge 9 was a ghost-built outpost buried deep in a dying nebula, a neutral zone kept alive by smugglers, defectors, and exiles who didn't care where you came from, only that you left your war behind. Its beacon didn't broadcast coordinates, it pulsed in silence like a heartbeat for the forgotten. Only those with the old codes could find it. Malik had never taken anyone there before. But tonight, the ship carried more than fugitives. It carried survivors. Sile stood at the viewport, watching the hazy rings swirl around them. Behind her, her brother Ven lay curled beside the elder woman, wrapped in a thermal blanket. The other rescued Valeri children were asleep, their limbs twitching in dreams that Malik could only pray were softer than the cages they came from. He entered quietly, wiping coolant from his hands. "They're going to need more than food and rest," Sile said without turning. "They'll need purpose." Malik stepped beside her. "So did you," he said. She glanced at him. "You gave me mine." The docking clamps hissed, but even before the ramp lowered, Malik's instincts went cold. He saw the blinking red on the console. An encrypted broadcast signal short range, bouncing off station hulls. "Not local. Not friendly." "Someone's here," he muttered. Sile stiffened. "Corsairs." "No, someone worse." Within seconds, the ship was sealed, systems on silent. Locked down. Malik activated the side ports and peered through the scope. A sleek, black vessel sat parked 3 bays over unmarked, too polished for pirates, too quiet for scavengers. "Syndicate," Malik said. Sile's eyes narrowed. "They found us." They were supposed to be safe here. Refuge 9 was built on one rule: no bounties, no betrayals. But that rule had cracks. And money filled them fast. Malik checked the radar. No heat signals outside the ship. They haven't breached, yet. Then, "We hit first," Sile said. Malik raised an eyebrow. "You serious?" "They're not here for peace. They're here for me. If we wait, they'll take me, or worse. And I'm not going back to a cage." She walked toward the supply locker. Malik followed. Together, they geared up sidearms, EMP grenades, and a shockwave emitter with only one charge left. Sile strapped a pulse blade to her prosthetic, the blade snapping into place with a hiss. She adjusted the magnetic booster on her calf, now upgraded for silent leaps. "What's the plan?" Malik asked. Sile's lips curved into something halfway between rage and purpose. "We end it." They exited the rear hatch, slipping into the steam ducts behind Bay 7. The station was dim, lit only by the ambient light of the nebula bleeding through the outer windows. Every step echoed, every pipe hissed. They reached the black vessel just as the syndicate agents emerged. 4 of them. 1 human, 2 insectoids. 1 veiled figure in a synthetic cloak, all armed. Targets inside the freighter, one said. Secure her. No marks. Client wants her clean. That's going to be a problem, Sile said. The agents turned. 2. Late. Malik tossed the EMP. It exploded in a pulse of light. Shorting comes and visors. Sile launched forward, her legs slamming into the nearest agent's chest with enough force to shatter armor. She spun, blade out, catching the second by the neck. Malik fired 3 clean shots to the thorax of the insectoid, 1 to the knee of the human. The last agent veiled, fast ducked and drew a high-frequency blade, catching Sile across the side. She staggered, blood streaking her ribcage. Malik screamed her name, but she didn't fall. Instead, she gritted her teeth, activated her booster, and drove her leg into the enemy's chest with a pulse of force so brutal it launched them into the docking wall. Silence fell, only the sound of breathing, metal cooling and blood dripping. Malik rushed to her side. She waved him off. Not deep. He pressed a patch to her wound anyway. You're insane. So are you, she said, smiling weakly. They dragged the bodies into the black ship and activated the emergency purge. In seconds, the vessel was shot into space clean, silent, and untraceable. They returned to the Dandelion ruin without a word. The Valeri children were still asleep. Sile cleaned the blood from her leg, then sat beside her brother, one hand resting on his chest as he breathed softly. Malik sat in the cockpit, eyes fixed on the nebula burning outside. They had won, but war had followed them. Even here, he knew what it meant now. They weren't just running anymore. They were fighting back. The stars above the capital system of Nova Geras burned white and gold. 6 years had passed since the night Malik Rowan and Sile Valerie sent a syndicate death squad spinning into the void outside Refuge 9. 6 long years of fleeing, fighting, and rising. The Dandelion ruin had become more than just a ship. It became a rumor, then a name, and finally a banner. Sile's name was no longer whispered in back alleys or scrawled on bounty pads. Now it was sung in protest songs and coded into resistance transmissions across 30 systems. She was no longer a girl begging for a leg in the rain. She was Commander Sile Valari, war pilot, tactician, symbol of the reborn free colonies. And today, she was walking straight into the belly of the very machine that once priced her life at 5,000 credits if dead. The chamber of the Free Colonies Accord towered above her, columns of polished crystal flanking a central dais lit by starlight from the dome above. Every system in attendance, 1,000 worlds represented. Malik stood at her side, older now, more scar on his jaw, more gray in his stubble, but his eyes still held the same steady fire. Sile's leg, now gold-lined and inscribed with the names of every child they had rescued, clicked softly against the marbled floor. A voice rang out from the speaker's platform. Commander Valari, do you accept the founding charter of the United Colonies? Do you swear to uphold its laws, to defend its people? I don't swear, Sile said. Her voice calm but firm. Gasps echoed around the room. She continued, because when I was 17 cycles old, your laws let me be sold for spare parts. When I had no leg, your world looked the other way. The only thing that saved me wasn't your oath. It was one man who didn't walk past. She turned slightly, her eyes finding Malik. He nodded once. So no, I won't swear to uphold what's broken, she said. I will fight to rebuild. It silenced. Then, slowly one delegate stood. A Zarnik elder from the frost moons of Hyren. The commander speaks truth. Another stood, then another, until the chamber stood as one. The accord was ratified that day, but the galaxy hadn't given up all its ghosts. 1 week later, as the dandelion ruin coasted through the cirrus fields of the vendor sector, a coded message broke through their comms barrier. A ship had been discovered, old Corsair design, orbiting a dead world near the rim. Inside, they found prisoners long held, barely alive. One of them wore a tattered medallion carved in ancient Velori stone, a symbol of Sile's village. Malik adjusted course before she even had to ask. The landing was hard. Wind ripped across the dead planet like knives. The ship's landing struts groaned as they touched down in ash. The structure loomed like a wound on the surface, half collapsed, scorched by time. Inside were echoes, metal and bone, names scrawled on walls in blood and smoke. And in the back, chained to the core pillar, was a woman. Her hair had once been violet. Mother. Sile whispered. Malik's single quotes as heart stopped. They broke the chains. Woman coughed once, weak but breathing. You look like her, she said, tears clinging to her lashes. Sile knelt, pressing her forehead to her mother's. You named me Sile. You told me to run. I didn't stop running until I could come back for you. Malik turned away, eyes wet. They carried her to the ship together. When they rose through the cloud line, leaving the dark planet behind, Sile looked out at the stars, her mother sleeping beside her. Do you ever think about that night? She asked Malik. On Argon Prime? Every time I hear the rain, he said. She leaned back in her seat. Her gold-lined leg hummed softly. I offered myself for a leg, she whispered, but what I found instead was purpose. Malik didn't answer. He didn't need to. The dandelion ruin cut through the stars like a scar turned into a song. Behind them, stories burned. Ahead of them, hope. And through every system that once turned its back, the tale echoed louder now. She tried to sell herself for a prosthetic leg. Everyone ignored her, except a human who refused.